Patrick Doherty, keep us going with the New Orleans Saints.
This my question was Drew Brees' quieter 2018 his new normal in fantasy football? He was the QB 10 by average overall points, so still a QB 1. But this is a guy who, from 2011 to 2016, averaged 5,100 yards per season. I mean, unheard of production, even in this past first era, unheard of production for any era. But it was quietly down 4,400 yards in 2017, down below. He did take off week 17 last year, but he was down below 4,000 for the first time since he was with the Chargers. And there was a lot of debate over his deep ball last year. I thought it had certainly declined. Some other people, some of like the advanced numbers though, said it didn't decline nearly as much as like the eye test might have suggested. But I think Drew Brees he's in his decline phase. He was kind of subtly being treated as if he was in his decline phase by the coaching staff last year. And I think I predicted him as a QB1 this year, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him finish outside the top 12.
Is part of that he is declining, or is it's basically he's throwing to Michael Thomas and a whole bunch of jabronis out there?
But it wouldn't be the first time he's had.
True, but there's no like Jimmy Graham. There's no other second wide receiver that he's throwing to. And I think that Ted Ginn is a great role player. Traquan Smith showed flashes. You have like Austin Carr in the slot, like basically
Jared Cook now.
Rashard Matthews also. You have Jared Cook who can maybe fill that tight end role.
Left by Watson, yeah.
Right, and so maybe we will see some elevated numbers just because they have a true second option, other than Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield, where he's one of the biggest threats in the NFL.
And Brees' numbers were so depressed towards the end of last season because they were just blowing teams out and they were able to run the ball against like the Giants and the Bengals, where they were just stomping. So
yeah, it's tough for me to begrudge them from being. I know I've said this a lot during this episode, but begrudge them from being a run-first offense when you had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara as your running backs, right? And I think Latavius Murray can come in and probably do 90% of what Mark Ingram did.
It's going to remain a two-back offense for sure.
Vulture some goal line carries.
And at least Drew Brees is the type that we know that in that system he can make those big throws when he needs to.
I feel like he made them less, though, than he ever had before last year.
I think it's a fair suggestion. I mean, he's
Still
39.
Really big numbers last year.
I believe he might
40.
be turning 40 this
He's
year.
Wow.
He's 40, yeah.
Wow. All right, Nick Minzio, let's move over to the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta has Matt Ryan in place, Julio Jones in place, invested a lot in their offensive line. What's your big question?
ready to see is Calvin Ridley ready to take that step and overtake Mohamed Sanu. Ridley played 60% of the snaps last year, and Sanu played close to 80%. So hoping for a little reversal in that, a little switch in that. I'm excited about Ridley. So
he was tough to predict last year, right? Because he had 2 or 3 games where he went absolutely bananas, but there was no really rhyme or reason for him to be predictably great in those moments. I think at least what you're saying is what we should expect, right? Mohamed Sanu, who's, again, like that line of average, having Calvin Ridley overtake him as not a go-to number 2, but someone that will at least draw more targets and attention, I think that's easily predictable.
Right.
I would be surprised if that doesn't happen.
You could see like Sanu even getting cut.
You could.
Totally.
Yeah,
I think that there were some rumors.
Sort of plays the slot, though, so they're sort of different parts of the field a little bit. But.
Sure, but I think Calvin Ridley can move inside, too. Now, they're different bodies, like they're different types. Obviously, Sanu's like this physical presence, and Calvin Ridley wants to create separation.
Yeah, it wasn't surprising Calvin Ridley being kind of inconsistent last year. Some of his random touchdown outbursts, and a lot of it was yak, which yards after catch, which could be hard to predict. Some weeks, even week to week, some weeks you slip the tackle, some weeks you don't. But one way for that to become more predictable is playing more snaps, getting more targets, and I think it's a pretty safe bet that he'll both out-snap and out-target Mohamed Sanu this year.
And I think inside of structure, Matt Ryan is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Just when he has to break that structure, it goes wonky, goes haywire. So at least I think it was some self-scouting, some self-evaluating this offseason, right? Because the Falcons were to the point where they spent 2 first-round picks on offensive linemen. Like they want him to play inside.
Too.
Exactly.
They want to
change offensive coordinators.
Fired all 3 of their coordinators, which if you're going to do that, maybe you should just fire the head coach. But I digress.
Possibly. Lots of defensive issues for the Falcons last year because of injuries.
Yep.
I think it's a bounce-back team. Truly is a bounce-back team. Jesse, time for you to talk about the Carolina Panthers. Up and down season for the. I wouldn't say my team. At one point, it was.
Don't deny it.
Up and down season for them, right? First year with North Turner in 2018. There were some great positive moments, but as Cam Newton showed decline, so did the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. The offense was Christian McCaffrey. That's pretty much it. And that's my question going in here, both for real life and fantasy purposes, is he was getting basically in this NFL today. You see more specialized roles for running backs, where you have an early down hammer and kind of a receiving back and special teamers. But Christian McCaffrey, and that was a question in year one. We knew he was a great receiver. Would he ever be a 3-down back? And last year he absolutely was. He got enormous volume, and we saw how big he got this offense too. But you just wonder if that's sustainable and if he's going to break down and get hurt at some point.
I'm going to talk
because they funneled so much of their offense through him.
I think the Panthers have a lot of room to improve in offense.
Yeah.
Cam Newton, Norv Turner did what he was hired to do last year. Cam Newton had his career best completion percentage by almost 7 percentage points, and that was with his shoulder basically disattached.
It was basically creating more layups for Cam.
Yeah, and we've seen a total philosophical change in offense for the Panthers. They're no longer just putting out big bodies. They are actually trusting Cam Newton to make percentage throws and not just giving him 6'8" guys.
It's almost like quarterbacks want to throw to receivers that are open instead of people that are covered.
Yeah, they're surrounding Cam Newton with playmakers and Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel, and maybe even Ian Thomas. I don't know, didn't you own him in Dynasty?
I do.
But so I think the Panthers, to me, offense. And they made all this improvement last year, with Cam Newton barely even able to play his final 4 or 5 starts of the season. So it's an offense that I think kind of could be already improved a lot last year in terms of efficiency and still has room to go.
But speaking of McCaffrey specifically, he jumped from about 11 to 12 touches during his rookie year to about 20 last year.
And held up wonderfully.
And I would say it'll stay around that 20 mark. And I know that they had C.J. Anderson to start the season. They keep talking about how they want to give other people options. They don't know how to do that, right? Some teams just don't know how to use 2 backs in offense. We talked about the Steelers.
Some coordinators, Norv Turner, has never been
exactly.
that.
And so no matter who it is, if it's Jordan Scarlett, if it's Cameron Artis-Payne, whoever it is, Christian McCaffrey is still going to be in there 90-something% of the time because he is their identity in offense. He's their identity, and they don't know how to change that when he's off the field.
I took some heat for taking McCaffrey _1 overall in the draft guide mock that we ran.
I love it.
So I'm all in on this. And the Panthers, we didn't even talk about their offensive line. This is maybe a top 3-5 offensive line in the league. So I think everything's setting up
and
pretty
especially
well for
in
McCaffrey.
PPR. I mean, what do you have, 107 catches last year?
Yeah.
Record for running back. Yeah. By the way, Nick always bringing the offensive line facts here.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's go and close out the NFC South. I'll do that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have made a change at head coach, bringing in Bruce Arians. If we go back to last September, Jameis Winston was suspended. Ryan Fitzpatrick had an 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio in 2 games. There was even conversation, it's tough to remember this far back, of if Jameis Winston would even be on this team in 2019, right? Now he is, because Ryan Fitzpatrick completely fell off a cliff, which Ryan Fitzpatrick tends to do. But Jameis Winston, nothing has changed in his game, right? He's still this high variance guy who turns the football over, makes boneheaded decisions. He has not, I don't think, elevated his game really since his rookie year. So my biggest question is, how is Bruce Arians going to react to that? How is Bruce Arians going to change or work around that style that Jameis Winston has? Because just like Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston is entering his contract year.
I mean, Bruce Arians has claimed it'll be a simple fix. And
sure.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. I mean, what you're hanging your hat on is so Jameis played in a prolific offense last year, but it was a head coach and a coordinator who are now other places, and one, like I said earlier, Todd Monken already butting heads with his new coach, Freddie Kitchens, Dirk Cutter, a journeyman. So this is by far the best coaching situation Jameis Winston has ever had, which, as we see kind of year after year, sometimes that's all a player needs. Andrew Luck had never fallen to the lows of Jameis Winston, but finally had a very good coaching situation last year, and then easily had his best overall year ever. Maybe not easy, you can debate that a little bit, but had his best year of his career. And sometimes it really is just as simple as coaching. Jameis Winston, might not ever be the most consistent quarterback. I think it would probably be his most consistent, steady overall year, and just by the simple virtue for finally having an elite, maybe not elite, but very good coach.
I mean, it's give and take with James. You're gonna get the touchdowns, the big plays, but you're gonna get the turnovers too. So
yeah,
I feel like Bruce Arians probably will. You'll never completely remove them from Andrew Luck's game. You'll never completely remove them from Jameis Winston's game. But I think Bruce Arians is the kind of coach who probably could get it to a manageable level.
And if he is consistent, then there's like prime breakout candidates on this offense, right? It's Chris Godwin, it's O.J. Howard, it's Ronald Jones, Pat's favorite sleeper heading into 2019.
We'll try. Don't say that on air.
Yeah, but I think you can't take like Jameis out of Jameis. It'd just be interesting to see with this new play
You can't
caller
ever,
in place.
like I said with luck, but you can harness it.
Sure.
And we're gonna see a harnessed Jameis Winston this year. It's gonna be a new Jameis.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.